People ask me all the time, they say, Scott, do I have to read the PMBOK to pass the PMP exam? Now, my answer is very, very simple. It is no. And in fact, I do not recommend that you read the PMBOK. I recommend you do something else, very specific something else that will guide you directly to passing the PMP and getting better while you do it. Now, if you don't believe me, no big deal. Let me prove it to you. In fact, I've got an interview. That's what this podcast is all about. An interview with a guy named Joey who didn't open the PMBOK one time. And he scored above target in all 5 process group, boop, 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 all across the board without opening it once. So if he can do it, you can do it. All you got to do is listen to this interview, put his techniques, his process into action, and you'll get the same results. All right, so check out the interview. I'll see you on the other side. This is a good one. Enjoy it. So the real question is this: how do hardworking project hustlers like us, who aren't afraid to put in the work, who invest in ourselves and our careers, how do we prepare for the PMP in a way that makes us battle ready for the onslaught of situational questions we know we'll face, so that we can walk into the exam with confidence and walk out with the project respect we deserve? Now, I've been in your shoes and I've done it. Join me as I guide you step by step to your PMP success using the most innovative study practices and the best tools on the market. My name is Scott Payne, and welcome to PMP Exam Success Secrets. Hey guys, it's Scott from PMP Exam Success Secrets with Scott, and today we have a very, very special interview. Today we have Joey, and Joey has just done something really awesome, above target on all 5 process groups, and he didn't use the PMBOK not a once, not even, I think he picked it up once. We'll talk about what he did with it. I guess it's on the coffee table or something, but he's going to walk through his process. This is just going to be a fast, fun interview. We're just going to learn about why he did things, what how his process was, and how he got the results he got, so that you can get them too. So thanks for coming, Joey.
Yep.
Good to have you, man.
Yeah, good to be here.
All right, cool. So like I laid on that you didn't touch the PMBOK once. Is that right?
Not once.
Not once. So, all right. So how? Like how did you go through and get above target on the PMBOK, on the PMP, without touching the PMBOK once? What's the secret, dude?
I mean, honestly, it's the material doesn't mean your material is so great if it's presented in a certain way, the way you do with the case studies, and then presenting, essentially cutting off all the fat of all the stuff you don't need. And that's what the PMBOK is huge, just 700 and something pages, and it's a dry read, and don't get me wrong, it's a great guideline and all that, and it's important, and yada yada, but there's a lot of just dense material you really don't need. So I mean, I think once I found your material, which cut away all that stuff to where you don't actually need, and I knew I was confident that if I can find material that was just got rid of all the crap I don't need and just have exactly what I needed to understand the processes and things like that, that'd be more useful, and it's just much easier to consume than just trying to read through just hundreds of pages.
Okay.
Boring.
Cool. So let's take a step back. Like, we know, everybody knows you passed, you didn't open the PMBOK, you focused on what matters, all that stuff. And we'll talk about like your process in a second. But like, for someone out there, like, who is Joey? Like, why did you go and get your PMP? What were you trying to solve for yourself by getting the PMP?
I mean, I've been doing project manager for a while, and doing business analyst stuff and development and things like that. But project management is what I like doing. It's always it's always fun. There's always different problems to solve and all that stuff. I don't want to bore you with those details, but doing it for so long, and it was just one of those things that I learned everything the hard way, and I learned everything. Being a project manager, there was never any formal training. I never walked into a job and they're like, okay, here, you're gonna be a project manager. We're gonna teach you how to be a project manager through PMI. It was just always just getting shit done. It was just like, here's a problem, let's just figure it out along the way. So the skills were there, and the mindset was there, but the skills were pretty raw. Right. And I knew if I got the PMP, it would just kind of refine those raw skills that I had and just flesh them out and things like that. To some of the more standards. I don't completely shit on the PMBOK or the PMI ways. It's a great guideline, and that's the thing, is that I felt if I got the PMP, it would just refine those skills to more of a global standard way of doing things. So that was really my goal. I don't think because I got the PMP, I'm a better project manager than those who don't, or I'm a better project manager. But I do feel that I like I said, I refined some of those skills, and I can articulate on some things and things like that.
That's cool, man. All right, so cool. So we met a little while into your study process, but you had done some other things, read some other books, done some other videos and stuff like that. Talk us through kind of like more of like what your mind was going through while you were doing those. Was it, what were you thinking while you were using those other materials? How were you feeling?
I mean, like most people, you start the PMP process and you usually go to like the internet or some forums or Reddit or whatever to try to find what other people did, and hey, how do I get started? Because it's overwhelming. It's an information overload out there, and you go and find what other people are doing, and then 80% of the time you get to people saying you have to do it this way. Go read this. Go do this. So I started with like, read it was the big book, and I started there, and go get this e-course from Cornelius and things like that. And I just didn't know any better. I was like, okay, well, all these people are doing it, then it must be the right thing to do. Mm-hmm. And that's what I started doing. And I just, it didn't work for me. I immediately, as I'm going through it, I'm like, this is just not the way my mind can consume things and remember it. It was just, I knew if I'm reading this and listening to this, it's more of a focus on memorizing, and that's not what I want to do. And it just didn't work for the way my mind works. So, along the way, I'm doing like different, researching different study styles and trying to understand how my mind can consume information better. And I knew that I needed something that would, like when I found your stuff, you have the case studies and things like that. And I was like, oh, okay, that's going to help because I want to tie it to the real world. And wanting to talk about theory and like, this is how it's done. But then it's hard to like bring that concept to the real world to make that connection. And once you make that connection, at least for me, and I think a lot of people have that learning style, it's pretty common. Until you make that connection to the real world, it's hard to actually conceptualize that information. Mm-hmm. So I went to some of the old stuff, and yeah,
that's cool. And so once you started getting into it with the things that we were doing, what was your process like? Like how long? How did you attack this? Did you just dive right into the e-course? Did you dive into the books, or what did you do? Like someone out there might be looking to see what your path was.
Eventually I settled into, we had the live study courses and things like that. So each week there was a goal or a certain guideline we were following.
Right.
So I found the most success and the best flow of things when I just read through the chapters for that week that I needed to read through. And I went back to the e-course and went through those videos in that e-course. And, it's the same information, but, delivered different. I know some people are better, reading, consuming information. Some people are better hearing it, some people and seeing it, things like that. So I think doing that, it covered. I think I balance on a little bit of all of that. So reading through it and then doing the e-course and then talking with folks, live on those Saturdays, really helped. And it was just, again, it was the same information, but all delivered different. And on the Saturday courses, you're talking through problems with people, and you're helping people solve their problems, and you're presenting your problems and getting information from other people. So you're teaching, and you're learning, and you're listening on top of the reading and the watching the videos. So, each week it was just kind of that overload of the information. It really helped to help you actually understand, and not just like read a book and try to hey, I hope I comprehend that information I just read. No, you go through and you actually have to understand it to be able to, especially when you try to explain it to people.
Right. Yeah, I think that the teaching part is a big one. So like that's one of the parts that like I think we stumbled on, and you're one of the first kind of like pilot groups that went through to say, hey, let's give them another opportunity to go and teach. And so now how did you you did a ton of simulator work on yourself. Like, did you find that your scores just kind of like went up, or were there like hills and valleys where you're like, oh God, I forgot about this in the past, or how did that go for you?
I mean, I did kind of follow some of the old, the old standard that people talk about where, you take these exams and you identify your gaps and things like that. So, I will say I didn't go and like sit through 4 200 question simulators on my own at home. I didn't do that. No,
Yeah.
wait, that was insane. I think I did 150 questions at the most. So I mean, I did follow it to her. You start doing those simulators. You start identifying. Again, I went by only process group. That's the only thing I focused on was process group.
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah.
And I think that's what, in my experience with the PMP, I think is what people should focus on, not knowledge area, but process group. So I went through and I'm like, oh, wow, I'm pretty shitty at planning. So, I went back and kind of, went through planning a lot more and kind of reread some stuff, went through the e-course again and took some planning focused quizzes and things like that. And that really helps. So, I mean, it's pretty standard, you identify your gaps and then,
that's
press
cool.
on those.
And so like when I was taking the PMP, and I've told the story a jillion times, but like the process group thing is, how I developed my understanding and how I developed the books and stuff. It just made more sense in my mind. Like when you made the switch from knowledge area to process group, like what clicked in your brain? Why was it different? Talk me a little bit about that a little bit.
Holy shit. Once I found that, it made everything so much easier. Because you're going through like the PMBOK and things like that, and it's by knowledge area, and you're explaining stuff, and it's all in theory, but you have no connection to the real world because none of that by knowledge area. That's not how it works in the real world.
Right.
But going by process group, there's some differences and stuff, but you're kind of walking through mentally how a project actually, lives its life.
Mm-hmm.
So you're able to make that connection. So, and that helps so much with a lot of the situational questions. A lot of them were, they would talk about in a situation, you're doing this, and then you have to understand where you're at in the process, and it makes the answer pretty easy to identify because,
right.
I'm at the last part of scope planning, so I know I'm going to jump into the schedule portion of planning, and in your mind, when you go by process group, that's a little easier to make that connection. If you're going by knowledge area, you have no fucking idea. You have no idea where you're at.
Yeah. And so, that's one of the big things. I think that's the hole, and you hit on it. Like if you go all the way across in knowledge area, you feel like it creates it makes you skinny fat, I think. Like you feel like you're like, oh, I'm looking good in the mirror, but like you are weak. You're weak. Like you have a very shallow understanding because you're like, because it doesn't challenge your mind at all. You go schedule. It's force fed to you, or it's, it's spoon fed to you. But like once you switch the knowledge area or process group, then you're like, you actually have to do a little weightlifting. You go like, where am I? Why am I doing this? How does it link? And you actually start building a little bit of muscles. So I think mentally. So,
I honestly, and I try to understand that what works for me, it doesn't work for everyone else. But
absolutely.
I don't understand how you can go by knowledge area and pass this thing. It just doesn't make sense to me at all.
Yeah, it doesn't mean to me either. And I think it's a big risk that people out there, because you look at the market and you look at let's just name names. Andy, Rita, Cornelius, all these other dudes are out there, nice guys and everything, but it's all the same, which is great. Head first goes the other way, which is cool, I think. Kim Hellman. But yeah, I recommend, even if they do like me, where is it? I have the book. I've never shown you this. Hold on for 1 second. All right. So this is live, or it was live when we filmed it, right? I gotta adjust the camera to get the thing back. So you know how I wrote my book, and I said I ripped up the PMBOK, and people might go like, "Oh yeah, it's both. That's not real, right?" I'm trying to get the camera to adjust the thing. This is the actual version 5 PMBOK.
Holy shit!
That I ripped up, and it's it shows all those tabs for different process groups, and all those John stories. Those green tabs.
To start it all.
So yeah. So even if someone doesn't want to read my book or whatever, I say rip up the PMBOK, punch holes in it and reorganize it. So who knows?
That's that whole thing. If people don't want to read your book, that pisses me off. It's one thing that's my pet peeve in the people studying for the PMP is that they're like, oh, this is expensive, and it's a $70 book. I'm like, this is a $70 book for a globally recognized certification. It's one of the toughest things you'll probably ever do in your life. I know people who, Echo has her master's degree, and she's like, the PMP was the hardest test I've ever done in anything in my entire life.
Right.
So when people are skimming, they only want to spend $10 in this process. I'm like, I get that there's, financial struggles and all that, but
Yeah.
I mean, this is a big investment in yourself. So to want to dodge spending, 60, 70 bucks on some great material it blows my mind.
Right.
Yeah.
So cool. I agree 100%. So let's talk about, so you were prepping. How did you know you were ready to take did you just set a date and then you're like, whatever I studied to that point, or did you know like, hey, I'm ready, I got to do this, or what was it like?
Man, this is stupid, but when he said that, I thought of that fucking the Spider-Man animated film that just came out.
Okay. Well, I haven't seen it yet. My sons love it. So it's cool.
And he see
no, the animated. Oh yeah, I saw the animated one. That one's good.
Yeah.
Spider-Verse. Yeah. Go.
Yes. And he asked the older Spider-Man, how do you know when you're ready? He's like, you don't. And that's exactly what it is. You don't. You just do it. And like, I know people are like, you got to get 85 to 90% on all your exams. And I wasn't. I was not. I was getting, I think the last one I took, I was getting around like 70. I think 75 was S1. And I didn't let myself get wrapped up on what other people were saying, is that you have to hit this number to feel like you're ready. I just thought, I kind of feel like I'm ready. And I feel like I have a pretty good understanding of this. So I'm going to go with my own gut and not what everyone else is telling me I should feel. So I didn't like, even that day I was like, I'm not sure if I'm ready, but you got to be positive. You just get in there like, well, I mean, you got to just do it versus just, if you wait till you feel like you're going to go in there and get every question right, then you're going to be studying for the next, 25 years.
And I do think you can get stale. Like, do you think it's possible to do that? Like to get mentally stale?
Yeah. And I think some people just, they take too long and they don't put enough, trust in themselves. And even me, I was like, the day of, I was like, I don't think I'm ready, but I just did it because I knew if I would just push forward and do it, even if I failed, I'm like, I could fail, but then I'm going to learn and do better next time. So it's a matter of not being afraid to just make that leap and just go for it. Because, and I'm not talking about like, start your studying and go take the test in a week, but
no.
Don't wait till you feel like you're 100% ready. And I think that's what a lot of people do. And I tell people when I talk to them, like, no, don't postpone your test. Don't do any of that. Just go for it.
Right. Yeah. Cause I think you're right. Like you want to be perfect, and then, you can get stale or you can get apprehensive, and then, on the exam, you start to over guess yourself and you end up like talking yourself into whatever. And so I think that's another point about, the way in which I saw as you studied was that you were relying a lot on not memorizing, but understanding the connections between things and making sure that you kind of had the feel of things to like instinctually use your knowledge. Cause a lot of people say, abandon everything that's in your past experience. And obviously we have to go by just what the PMI says, but I think you can use your experience to play into that. Do you agree or what?
No, I agree. I think that especially if you've been doing it for a long time, you have to, if you're doing it for a long time, you probably have pretty good PM instincts.
Yeah.
But some of the stuff you learn along the way, like I did, it's pretty raw skills. So you have to just understand the PMI stuff enough to know, what a super PM, PMI PM would say, but don't abandon everything you've ever learned at being a PM at all. Use those instincts, but, and that's a lot of my stuff was the instincts were pretty spot on as far as, because I didn't know a lot of questions were around, and I don't know if this is something new, but around human behavior, like, being a positive leader and things like that. As a project manager, more about being a leader and making people feel positive and building a positive environment. I had a lot of questions around that, and I use my instincts because that's my philosophy too. And I use those instincts, and clearly that's exactly what it's supposed to be. Because
yeah, because you're kind of living the mantra or whatever of it. But I think that's another good point. Like if a lot of the questions are on emotional intelligence and like human behavior and being a great leader and servant leader and stuff, like that's not input, output, tool, and technique stuff.
Right.
Like that's philosophy and approach and, other things, right? Like,
yeah. It's, which I agree with. It's less about, command and control with people. It's more about, like you said, being a servant leader and taking that approach. I think if you have that mindset and less of like I said, the command and control and things like that. It's that's gonna. Because I know some people are like that, especially people who at least in the past, from people I've studied with them like years and years ago, who talked about the PMP. That was their approach of just how do you get through this project? You make people do it because they have.
Yeah.
Get away from that and get into being a servant leader and actually treating people like humans, and that's going to help you a lot on the exam as well.
Yeah. Oh, I think it's good. Like, because there's parallels. And when you were talking, I was thinking that like the way in which people study a lot of times is command and control things. They're like, they have I think people lack respect for the PMP, like overall. Like, and I think some people that develop content have lack respect for it. But like in the fact that they're not thinking through like the system of it, and then it's really like you're trying to understand how to become a better project manager and other things. So I think if you bring that like more servant leader and not the command and control, you get a better score on the exam, and you probably become a better project manager at the end. So
yeah, and then that's another element too that I think some people just miss or overlook is, don't get me wrong, yeah, there's the real world, there's a PMI way, but there's a lot of overlap.
Right.
I think if you put a bit of a focus on trying to learn how to just become a better, because I went through it and I'm like, holy shit, there's a lot of stuff I learned that I get to apply now, like right away. Like, this is awesome. So you get to learn not only to pass the PMP, but also, because that pisses me off when people are like, who cares, just pass the PMP. I'm like, well, no, I get the PMP, but I can still be a shitty project manager.
True.
So if I focus on trying to be a better project manager as well as get it to PMP, you put those together, and that's huge for you. And you're gonna
That's cool. So let's talk a little bit about like the exam in itself. Like a lot of situational questions. You said some human behavior stuff. I assume change stuff. Like,
oh yeah.
What's your approach to like solving a questions? Did you just first instinct go with it and move on, or what was your strategy?
That's my instinct in general is to
I wouldn't have guessed, dude. I wouldn't have guessed.
I'm like, oh, that's it. So I have a hard time like with flagging questions. I'm terrible at. I'm so bad at. So I would still answer the question and flag it because I'm like, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
So my approach was, like we said, weeding out those answers and going with my gut, because if you feel good about the information, you understand it, then a lot of times your gut's right. So I didn't flag. I think there's only like 2 or 3 that I actually flagged and didn't answer. But the other one I would answer. I'm like, I'm pretty sure that's right, but I'm gonna flag it to come back to later.
Right.
So I mixed that a little bit because I know how I answer things and how I work, where I'm just like, read through, I'm like, nope, that's right, and go. So it was more trusting my gut, but also putting a little check to come back and just like, let's just make sure. Let's come back later. And
that's good. All right, cool. And so how confident were you when you hit the button? Were you like, I nailed this thing, or what?
No, no, God, no. Not.
Was it a straight 4 hour, like to the buzzer, or did you finish early, or what?
I think it was like 3 hours and 45 minutes, and that was only because I mean, it's a long time to be in there. Stupidly, I didn't get up to like take a break and stretch, which is probably pretty stupid. I should have done that because I was getting really antsy, and I was just kind of over at that point. I still had like, I don't know, 10 or 15 questions to go through, and that I had flagged for review, and I just didn't. I was like, you know what? I either got them or I didn't. So I just submitted, and I was pretty confident, but I was certainly not like, I was right on the fence. If I saw pass, I'm like, oh yeah, that makes sense. If I saw fail, I'm like, well, shit, I guess, yeah, I got some work to do.
Got another time. We can have more conversations, so that's good. But you did really well, so that's good. Now, like to close out, I think you dropped a lot of good stuff on us. Like someone that's starting out now and that's on the fence and kind of lost, or maybe they feel a little overwhelmed. What would be your guidance to kind of give them shelter from the storm and get them like a little bit of push or direction on what to do next? What would you tell them?
I mean, I would say weed out all the stuff you hear. Like, I would just tell people now, even now I tell people, don't go to the internet, don't go to Reddit, and don't do the stuff I did to try to find all the information. Just, if I'm talking to them, I suggest, I'm like, here's the book and the e-course. Just go read this. Go read Scott's stuff.
Yeah.
And ignore everything else, just because it cuts off all the fat that you don't need, and it'll get you through this stuff, a much quicker and easier path. So I mean, I think just not overthinking it and not trying to mimic what other people are doing, but more understand and it's hard for people to understand how they are, how they can absorb the information, consume the information. So I think trying to take that, try to understand that first about yourself. What's the best way you can consume information and learn? Understand that first before you actually just go and try to mimic what every single other person in the industry is doing.
That's good. All right, Joey. Well, this is really good. I know we'll be pulling in again and talking to you more. And you and I are actually working on something. You know, in the process, you started doing some things to help you study that I think could be helpful for other people. So we'll just tease the world with that, and maybe we'll drop that on them soon. But thanks a lot for your insights, man. Thanks a lot, and congratulations. And if people didn't know it, Joey and I made a bet. Joey was like so down that last couple of days. You were like, either you were playing it slow or whatever, because I was like, oh my God, he might not. He says he's not sure or whatever, and then you ended up doing well. But I bet you that you wouldn't get above target on all the things, and you did it. And now you got a bunch of beer for it. So that's
yeah. I mean, that's a whole, that gets a whole other talk with like character strengths and things like that. And hope is not my strong. I'm always pessimistic more than optimistic. So
right.
Yeah.
Right. Well,
worked out.
In light of your pessimism, you still were successful. So
yep.
Triumph at the end. So that's good. All right, man. Well, thanks a lot, and I appreciate your time, dude.
Yeah. All right, man.
Right on. Hey guys, thank you for tuning in today, and I hope this message made a giant impact in your PMP study. I know that when I was out there, it was really hard to find just one person that was going to guide me from the beginning to the end and speak to me in a language that made sense. That is what this podcast is all about. Now, there's a ton of more people out there just like you. I know you got some in your life. If you want to make a difference in their life like I'm trying to make in yours, share the podcast. Get them on the train too. It's going to help them. It's going to help you. Everybody's going to get better. And if you want to continue to get better, I have a special offer for you. Now, I've written a new book. I know a lot of you out there are having issues with math and EVM, earned value management calculations. It's hard. It's confusing, we think, but in reality, I've broken it all down. I've simplified everything. So if you want to take your EVM levels to the roof, if you want EVM made easy, then come to our website, pmmasterprep.com/free. I have a book. It's going to be on Amazon. It's going to cost a lot of money on Amazon, but on my website, it's free. So go through there, get the EVM made easy book. It's really going to help you out. It's going to simplify everything. I'm going to teach you exactly how to solve all the EVM problems. So go check it out, pmmasterprep.com/free. Get the EVM made easy book. And let's do this.